Can you hear me, Mal? Am I there? It says I'm live. As usual. Oh, gotta get the seat up a little bit. Oh, I got the big comfy chair today. I've got an artist over there. There's Max. Max, you want to make an appearance? He wants to put on his shades. He was working all night. So he hasn't slept much. There's the camera up there. So basically, he was in the live room in there. So what he does is not only is he also an amazing guitar player, he's also really, really good at programming, which I think is pretty recent, yeah? It's like the last year. And so with the album, he's been pretty much the driving force creatively, because he's taking the songs, taking piano vocal songs, and then building programming around it. Then we're adding guitars and drums and everything. But he's really a massive driving force behind it. But it means that he's working some very odd hours. And when I mean odd hours, I mean, what time did you fall asleep? 4:30, you said? Yeah, 4:30. And so we came in the morning. Andrew comes in at 9 a.m. and calls me and says, "Hey, Warren, Max is asleep on the couch." And I'm like, I know. But that's what you do. It's funny because we've been talking about it, because we've been talking about interns and assistants, and we've been talking about what it takes to do this. And that's what it takes. It takes working through the night. It's like when you're in a zone and you're creative, about not losing that momentum. Because creativity strikes when it strikes. But I don't know about you, Max, but I'm not one of these people that believes that, you just kind of sit around waiting for it to happen. I'm not like that. I just pick up a guitar and I start working, and 99% of the ideas for 3 hours are total crap. And then something happens. I like to work through it.
Well, I mean, yesterday one of the little goals I set myself was to make up 100 riffs for the track we're working on.
100 riffs?
Yeah.
His goal was to make up 100 riffs. Tom C says, I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning, couldn't go back to sleep. Power naps for 24 minutes. Been there lots of times. Canada in the house. Mike says, because you're not sleeping, you need 2 pairs of shades.
I've got to.
He says he's got to. So that's what it takes. I mean, that's what it takes. And I think that I know a lot of you here, quite frankly. How do I get this pop-up chat? Here we go. I figured it out. I'm not completely illiterate, only partially. Yeah, so I know a lot of you here understand. A lot of the Academy members hear me harping on about this stuff. Michael says, in the mix, what are we mixing today? Well, let me play you this. This is a request by quite a few people, and I will play it to you. So, this is, what do you want to hear? Do you want to hear a mix I did on a Neve console? Do you want to hear a mix I did on an SSL? Do you want to hear the raw tracks, or do you want to hear all three? What do you want to hear? Why don't I do everything? Here is the raw tracks. This is a song by Pete Morose. Okay, there I am. I'm up here. Woo! Hey, everybody. And as ever, please like and share. Please like and share. That would be absolutely amazing. I know this is one that everybody's asked for. All three. Okay, great. So everybody's been asking for this. They've been asking, can you please do a song from scratch? I see we have 277 people watching. Thank you ever so much, and 78 likes. Could you please like and share? Because if you like it, you see it, and share it, it helps. Does guitars hanging resonate when you mix? Only if I put my head up against the guitar like this. No, I mean, if there's any resonation, it would be all the way back there. I'm sitting here. I've never noticed it. When it gets loud enough that it might affect it, if it got that loud, it would be that loud. I'm sure you understand. Okay, so let's do it one at a time. So this is the raw tracks. Here we go. That's as rough as it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to the chorus. There's a number of things I'd love to talk about here. Tons and tons of stuff. So actually, before we play the live tracks, I'll play you this mix here. Might have to bring it down. It's probably cramped. That sounds fantastic. That is, of course, the instrumental. So here you go. This is mix 2. This should have the vocal on.
Have you been to the bottom of the canyon, to the bottom of all alone? Did you ever stop to think there's a diamond in the dirt below? It's all where you're looking. It's all in how you look. Is there a darkest mountain coming into view? If we take a little time and dare to climb, there's hope for me and you. It's all in how you're looking. It's all in how you look. Open up your eyes, and you will find it's a big old world, and it's yours and it's mine. Open up your
Thanks, everyone. I've been reading those comments. Good spot, Tom. So let me tell you a little bit about this song because it's pretty freaking awesome. Let me talk about the musicians. So the drummer is Victor Indrizzo. I will write that down. You can go to AllMusic. In fact, while we're talking about it, go to AllMusic in general. This is the drummer. AllMusic, when you're like watching guys like me and you're trying to get information, go to AllMusic and look up people that you're learning from to understand what their knowledge base and what they do. Because the great thing about AllMusic is it doesn't have all my credits, but it has like 300 or 400 of them. So you'll get an idea of the kind of records that I work on and the kind of stuff I do. It doesn't have everything, of course. Like last night I noticed there was a lot of European releases that I did when I was in England on there. But that's because a lot of the releases that were before the internet, and I'm talking like early 90s, frankly, just didn't make it. But it's got a lot of my stuff on there. So go to AllMusic, look up Victor Indrizzo. So this is him playing drums. These are the live elements, no samples. So as Tom pointed out, he turned off the snare. So he's turning off the snare, and then when we come to the chorus, he brings it on. It's me. I record. I was the engineer and the producer and all that kind of stuff in Drizzo. But yeah, it's good to go to. Thanks for calling me a bragger. Okay, so so go to AllMusic. I highly recommend it because the thing about AllMusic is it keeps everybody's releases and it gives you perspective of like what you're learning and who you're learning from. So you'll notice something. You see what's going on up here? The song wasn't cut to a click. Wasn't cut to a click. It is a live performance. So I don't know on your screens whether you can see what's going on, but I created a tempo map after recording. So what I did is I Do you hear the vocal bleed in here? Listen to this. To open up your eyes. Did you hear that? I'm not sure how loud you're listening. I can hear it, but I'm wearing headphones. Let's have the far room. So, you see what happened. Everybody is tracking in the same room. You can hear some bass bleed as well. No, it's not two snares. It's literally Victor turning on the snare drum going into the chorus. So have a listen again. Do you hear it come on there? Do you hear the snare coming on that kick? So yeah, it's a nice moment. So this is a live performance. I get, you know, one of the things that we always talk about, and I can't overstress it, is there's no one way. And if I get a little snarky sometimes when everybody's telling us that their way is the best or not, you know, we had a discussion last time about whether to tune or not to tune vocals, you know, all of that stuff. To me, it's like, it's all about, and you hear me say it all the time, horses for courses. What are you trying to achieve? I get asked a lot about, people say to me, oh, when we're doing a track that's got EDM elements in it, or is all samples or something, they're like, that's not real music, you know. And I always say, well, it depends on what you're doing. Here is a band in a room. Everybody is in the room. Everybody's playing together. You've got Victor Indrizzo. You have got arguably one of the best bass players in the world, Mr. Dan Rothschild, who's currently the bass player for... Oh no, what am I talking about? Sorry, this is Sean Hurley. This is Sean Hurley playing bass. Do we all know Sean Hurley? Look him up. So Victor Indrizzo and Sean Hurley. Sorry, Sean. I'm typing in his name. So this is Sean Hurley on bass. Exactly, as Gary says, if it sounds good, who cares? The point is like, it's just understanding the tools and using the right tool. Hello in Colombia. You know, using the right tool for the mix. Yeah, no, musicians in a room always does feel good when they're good players. Now, I did overdub the acoustic because I was also the engineer, so how could I not? Here's the acoustic. And that is my old Yamaha. That's my 70s Yamaha. It's before I got the LL16. Now, reason why I was mentioning this above here, and I know it's hard to see probably on the screens, but you see I've created a tempo map. I did that because if I wanted to fix anything, if I wanted to move a note here or there, I wanted to move it to the feel of the drummer. It's Victor Indrizzo. It's one of the best drummers in the world. Why wouldn't I? Okay, so Mr. Zach Ray is on piano. This is Zach Ray. Look him up so you get an idea. All Music is loving us at the moment. We're sending everybody over there. Hey, Darko in Serbia. And the guitar is David Levita. Is that David or is that Tim? I forgot. Oh no, I've got to check it out. So, oh, and Zach Ray gave us a synth part as well. Here's his synth. Remember those days when we started out in a spare room or a piano? What kind of piano? That was a Baldwin grand piano. It's the same piano, same model. I think it's called a concert grand. It's the same model we used on How to Save a Life, so it's the same exact model. And we ended up using it on a couple of songs on the second Frey record as well. Okay, so now the vocals are Pete Morose.
Is there a darkest mountain coming into view? If we take a little time and dare to climb, there's hope for me and you. It's all on how you're looking.
No, it's a real piano. So people are still asking me about the piano. It is a concert grand Baldwin piano. Hey, Brett, real piano. It's a real piano. I mean, you can hear kind of the inconsistency that makes it. Let's go to... The thing about Zach, you'll notice, is a restraint. Yeah, it's close mic'd. I overdubbed the piano. It wasn't in another room because he was doing other stuff. Zach was playing synth stuff. So he did the synth stuff live and then overdubbed the piano. We did the electric guitar, the bass and the drums, and the vocals were tracked at the same time. And then we added other stuff afterwards. So yeah, it's really phenomenal. And then we had a girl background singer sing on it.
Open up your eyes, and you will find.
Mic locations for the piano. I have quite a few videos talking about it, but essentially it's a spaced pair. We did a interview with Jeff Balding, and it's really interesting. He's one of my favorite engineers, and he also records piano the same way. So that made me feel good. Okay, so you're getting an idea. I'll give you one more time. Raw tracks. The piano was mic'd with a pair of 414s. And it was in these days that was the only stereo pair I had available. This deal with phase issues is just sort of make sure that it's not out of phase. Okay, so drums once again. Here's the live drums. So I did do a little bit of cheating, and I added. You can see pretty low. All at the moment, if we go and look at the screen here, it's only volume. Where it says TA, that's time adjuster. So what I'm doing is I'm moving files back slightly so they're in phase. But that is it. It's not toms, it's the snare turned off. So this is the sound of the live drum kit I recorded. Now, I did add 2 samples of a kick. Actually, that's not true. One of those is the NS10. So the NS10 is giving me that low end. So if I put the kick in, the kick out, and the NS10, I get this. I'm not sure if you're all listening in environments where you can hear the low end, but remember, you can come back and do this afterwards. Hi, Anne. So I'm going to take the NS10 on and off, and you're going to hear what it does. Can you hear what's going on there? You hear what's doing? It's adding that extra kind of like oomph. So that's the NS10. So it's everybody knows what the NS10 mic is. It's that mic on the kick drum itself. Now, Matt Diamante, I know you're watching. You tell me you're always watching. Matt, we are going to give away a Alexei and I want this for Feedback Friday. We'll take one of the Pete Moreau's songs and put it in, I promise. We're also putting in Bleed. There's a lot coming up. There's a lot of songs coming up for Academy members. It's going to get a little crazy. A little crazy there in the Academy. Okay, so, subkick, as Tom said there. That's funny, YouTube thinks that's a swear word, subkick. So, Matt, there is a Pete Moreau's course with just me on it. But no, let's do this. So we're going to let's give away an Academy membership. We'll give away a 1-year Academy membership. But not yet. Not yet. What we're going to do is talk a little bit more about this. So at the moment, the only thing, I haven't talked about anything. The only thing that I haven't told you about is this. And it's a PR kick. It's a kick I use quite often. It's pretty darn similar to the kick in up here. Has a very similar characteristic. Here's my live kick. Which sounds pretty darn good, to be honest. But the PR kick has got a little tiny bit more. It's funny, you did sub kick again and it's not letting us do it. It's got a little bit more slap to it. Like that, just a little bit more like attack. So what do I use it for? I use it for attack. So, but as you can tell, the drums are pretty close due to the recording. However, here's the snare. Let's go to the chorus, where he turns the snare on. Nick, that's how I recorded the guitar. All the effects were on it. Great, Tony. Great to see you. Yes, every week, Andre, we do live streaming, and inside of the Academy, we give away the multi-tracks, and people mix the songs, and then we critique them. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, what I'm trying to do here is make an illustration of, like, sometimes the most important thing to do is just listen. I'm just listening, you know what I mean? There's something about Victor, the way he plays, that he has that grace note. Amazing. Listen again. Hey, nameless one, or nameless one, I see. Matt will give you a link to the Academy. Thanks, Johnny. Oh, I like a Tom Sawyer reference. Okay, so what's next? There's a thing. This is what I'm going to jump to here. It's called a thwack. Now, back in ye olden days, yeah, it's like the Purdy Shuffle. Back in ye olden days, what do I mean by that? That's before I had a transient designer, and before there was a good transient designer plugin, or at least one that I knew of. I used to create my own, what I would call thwack sample. So this is actually the same snare. What I would do is at the end of a performance, I would have the drummer play the snare. So they'd do a take and then I'd get some snare samples. I highly recommend that you do this for many reasons. When you're tracking drums, at the end of tracking your drums, get your drummer to go around and give you single hits on everything. Like a few rung out single hits on snares at different velocities, like loud, medium, quiet. Thank you, Mikey. Get rack toms, loud, medium, quiet. Floor toms, loud, medium, quiet. Go and do all of those things. Get them all. And then what I would do is I got the snare and then I would compress it really heavily. Let me show you. See that? You hear that? So it's not just the snare top. If you can hear that okay, it's also the rooms. So why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing that because I didn't have a transient designer and I couldn't get that sound that every one of like the professional mixers would do. So I've done this, I used to do this for years. What it is basically this. So I'm going to go to the snare top here. Is everybody following me? Going to go to the snare top. And you can do this with a parallel. If you like, you can do this with a parallel snare. So you would duplicate it. So listen to the snare. See what happened? So I've got a Renaissance compressor here. I don't know if you guys or girls have this Renaissance compressor. It's a compressor that every guy I know uses, to be honest. It's not that there's great newer stuff out there. Of course there is. But this is a stalwart. This is a compressor I come to all the time. This is the default attack and release time. I cranked up the ratio. I'll go back to 0 and watch me do this. See the attack and release time where it's set? I took my ratio and cranked it, like maximum, like 50 to 1, limit the schnizzle out of it. Then I brought my threshold down. See what it's doing? Pa, pa, pa. On its own, not a good snare sound. Blended, it is absolutely phenomenal. Now the problem with that, of course, is it's bringing up a lot of bleed. So what we would do in the olden days is take this snare and duplicate it. We would have it coming down 2 channels on our consoles. We could do that just to show you. So I'm going to duplicate it. So now I've got one snare doing this. And then the other one, I wouldn't have that compressor on. Let's just bypass it. So I've got one snare doing this. And then one snare doing this. So you see what's happening. You've got one snare track is giving you pat, pat, pat. And the other one is giving you all the body. So put the two together and you get this. Exactly. It brings up that initial strike. It's a very, very simple, easy to do trick. So if you don't have any samples, you're limited, you've only got one mic on your snare, you can do this all with just the one. Now, why do I have a track just called thwack? Well, what I would do, like I said a little earlier, is at the end of a session, I would get the drummer to give me single snare hits. And so with that reason, with the single snare hits, I was able to create 2 things. A sample. So a sample of the snare in the room, and then that effect. And with it, it's a sample, but these are samples of themselves. So it's the actual snare that the drummer played in the room, used as a sample. Thank you ever so much, Marshall. I really appreciate it. You rock. You're buying us some lunch. I really appreciate it. So you understand what I'm doing? So you should do this. Even if you're recording in your garage or your 2 mics in your bedroom, 1 mic, at the end of recording, before you pack anything up, before you change anything, get single snare hits, single toms. So you can use a quote-unquote sample, but it's a sample of the drums itself. So what you have is you have the live snare sample, and then I create that thwack sound, and this is what I got, these 3 things together. I mean, it's the best sample in the world because it's a sample of the real drums. You're not doing anything. All you're doing is what we used to do years ago, which is create parallels and compress them and do different things with them. But we always got annoyed by it because the problem was we'd always be bringing up a bit too much bleed, a bit too much overlap, all that kind of stuff. So by doing this, you're using itself. So it's got the sound of the room. Now let's add the snare at bottom and top. Exactly, it's parallel compression we're using there. But what I was doing is I was permanently creating something, permanently creating a sample of itself, so I didn't have to have like a generic sample thrown in there. See how good that sounds? It's enhancing the natural snare. It's not taking some generic sample and trying to stuff it in there. I'm using the real one. Now, without sounding too contradictory, I did add this snare. This is my famous, not famous, the one famous like it's famous, but this is the D28 sample. Super low, but I'll turn it up just for the heck of it. Super low, but I blended in there. So I've got it really, really low. It's a favorite of mine. You can see it just adds body. The only thing that I felt was lacking in this drum sound, which was very subtle, and was a little bit more body. And to be honest, it's really, really subtle. So let's hear it with and without. So just thank you ever so much, Joan. I really appreciate it. Really glad to be able to help you in any way, shape or form. And thanks for this amazing community. We haven't high passed yet because I recorded a lot of this stuff with high passing on. So you see what it's doing. I mean, to be honest, I turned it up there to illustrate it. I actually had it at minus 23. It's barely in. Yes, it can be done for tom-toms, as Anne is saying. That's what I mean. I would go around the drum kit and do this. It's not snare tracks. I was using it to illustrate. The other thing you can do, and it's very, very important, is you can blend this. I mean, we could take this schnizzle that we've got here, which is a sample of itself, a thwack one. I always call it a thwack, where I use the Renaissance compressor. And I remember I used the Renaissance compressor on the room mics of the snare as well. That's the room mics. I did add these by hand, but look, it's probably about 5 minutes because they're grouped together. Took about 5 minutes to add them, you know, and that's it. It was really, really super quick. Anyway. My point is like, once you get a blend you like, you can just bounce them to a stereo track. You don't have to lay them in like this. I just leave them for this so that they can, yeah, the schnizzle. You can do whatever you like with it. Yes, Mike, I record with high pass on as well. No, they're all in phase. That's what's really, really important. You see all the phase correlations the same. Ups are the downs are the ups, etc. So you see what's going on with the mix here. I am choosing stuff. It's like when you mix a live recording. And I'm going to get into some more detailed stuff, but I want to do this really slowly and really, really detailed. I don't pan the samples of a kick and snare, bearing in mind these are not. This is a sample of the actual snare that was recorded. But I think it's very, very important to remember, like I say, when you're mixing a live recording, for instance, most of the time it's more about like prepping it and having it ready and getting all the balances. So, you know, it's that's the thing for me. So what have we done? We've been through everything as far as like the kick and the snares. The hi-hat, here's the hi-hat mic, which is really quiet. The Renaissance compressor, Matt can put it up again for you. It's probably underneath the video. It's a Waves product. I love everybody's explanation of the schnizzle. I grew up at a time and a place where, with a grandfather who was one of my favorite people that ever lived, who didn't appreciate swearing, so I grew up with that. All right, so I'm skipping on really, really quickly here. This is an important mic to talk about. This room cymbal mic is a cymbal in front of... Matt just put up a link to the Renaissance compressor there. So if you're watching this later, go to the chat, you'll see it. Okay, so there's a cymbal in front of the drum kit, and it's sort of in front, but it's between the kick drum and the snare. Could you imagine where I mean? Where there's kind of a gap. You see hi-hat, snare, kick drum, and it's on the ground. I mic the cymbal reflection, and this is what you get. I've got to be honest, that is probably the best mono drum sound. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, that could be the drum sound, let's be honest. That is one mic on the kit. It's all right, King Belzy. I don't think swearing makes you big. I think it's okay not to swear. You know, it's not that I don't make mistakes and swear every now and then. Trust me, I'm not perfect, but I personally, yeah. That's one mic. That's one microphone. That could be the drum sound. So, what does that mean? I know we're taking a long time doing this, but this is important. I want you, when you're mixing, especially if you're new, to listen to things, to make decisions on how to mix. That's why we're not rushing through. One of the biggest problems I have with a lot of these YouTube videos, like I say, we talk about it all the time, how people just like are starting channels, I get it, and they're copying all of this different stuff, and it's easy to do that and talk about boosting 50 or 60 hertz and on a kick and cutting this and cutting that. The problem is like that's not how mixers mix. That's the reason why everybody's always complaining about how everything sounds the same. That's, I will, Broadway Joe, I'll tell you a bit more about it. That's not how mixers mix. Mixers mix by listening to the music and making decisions. So what we're doing is we're doing this all together. There's 400 or 500 of you out there with me listening to this stuff. So the cymbal is on the ground in front of the drum kit. The mic is recording the reflective sound. I used a Joe Meek VC1 mic pre-compressor. That's a good idea. This is my old studio, which alas is no longer. Okay, so what's underneath? A salt shaker. As Per Leek is saying, your ears are always your best tool. I agree, my friend. That is an Altec salt shaker. I will write it in the comments here so you can go and Google it. Unfortunately, they're hard to find and they're very overpriced. That's not its real model. That's its nickname. But if you write Altec salt shaker mic, you'll find it. You'll see it, and you'll see why it's called a salt shaker. And yes, it's smashed with a schnozzle, as Tom said. And so this is all recorded through Attack Scorpion console. So lots of people, I had a discussion actually inside of the Academy, or it may have been the Produce Like a Pro student page. Somebody was asking about buying, there you go, it's the Altec 633A. It is delayed because it's in front of the drum kit. Yes, it's a room mic. So, yeah, I mean, you can take these tracks and build grooves out of it and write songs over them. They're so good. I mean, this is one of the best drummers in the world, Victor Indrizzo. I will write his name again so you can look him up. So anyway, what were we talking about? My fault. Okay, I was waffling on. Again, could be, one is the Altec Salt Shaker. The other one is an cheap Audix condenser. This one on the cymbal is a cheap Audix condenser. All right, sorry. Thank you for reminding me, Hedgeberg. So Hedgeberg Audio. So basically, inside of the students page or the Academy page, we have two pages. We have one for the Academy members only, which is completely private, only for Academy members. But then we have a student page, which is also private, but you can ask to join. You don't have to be part of the Academy. I can't remember it was being asked, but somebody was asking about buying cheap consoles. I believe it is a really, really good idea. Why do I think it's a good idea? Because when you look at things like TAC Scorpions, now bear in mind that was AMEC's cheap consoles, AMEC who owns Neve, and you can pick them up, or DDA consoles, for $1,000 to $2,000 and get 24 to 40 channels worth of decent sounding mic pre's that record drums that sound like this. That's no samples playing. That's the live drums going through Attack Scorpion. How to Save a Life drums done like that. So my point is, you get my point. You can get a lot of mic pre's. Now, don't get me wrong. I love IOs. I love what Audient's doing. They just sent us the ID44 to demo and do a giveaway with. That'll be happening in the next couple of weeks. Really, really fantastic stuff. And people are building in units now with 8 incredible mic pre's. But to do a live recording like this, if you get that opportunity, maybe you have your own home studio, you've got a garage set up, you've got drums in there, you've got a bass station and stuff. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars to get enough mic pre's and stuff, or you could just buy a used TAC Scorpion and get that kind of sound. So don't underestimate. It's called Twilight Biscuit. Was called Attack TAC Scorpion. I will write it down. Somebody already said they have one as well. Now they don't make them anymore. I don't know if in your area you can get them repaired. I don't know, and it's more of a point of thinking about a way to get from A to B really easily. Okay, so next up is Tambourine. Now, can you know something about this Tambourine? Yeah, Johnny, there was no EQ on that drum mic. It's all about placement. And if you're using like the Salt Shaker, it's pure mid-range. We'll go back to it for a second because I think it's important. It's total mid-range. We could take that mic, for instance, and do this. Let's go to our friends Mac DSP. Let's go, and we don't need the high pass on, we don't need the low pass on, we can leave that. Let's go to 60 Hertz. Okay, and boost this. I mean, I got a little crazy on it. We can bring it down to about 6 dBs worth of gain on 60 Hertz. Oh, Lisa, you know, Bootstraps? Yeah, I made a record with them. I did some live stuff. I mixed an album for them. Nice, Eric. Mobile recording, that's a great idea. I love doing live stuff. I've done so many live albums. I've done a Joe Strummer live album, a Ramones live album, Chili Peppers. I love doing, Black Veil Brides. I've done a lot of live stuff. It's really, really rewarding. I love doing it. It's a lot of work, but I love recording and mixing stuff live, you know, for live releases. I did the Black Veil Brides Alive and Burning DVD, Blu-ray. Came out a couple of years ago. It was a lot of fun to do. Chili Peppers, Joe Strummer, you name it. It's been fantastic. So you see there, all I did with that room mic is just give it some 60. That's it. And that microphone, the Salt Shaker, has no real low end. It's very mid-rangey. I didn't compress this mic because, quite frankly, it craps out. Would you mind pouring me some more coffee? That would be wondrous. Thank you. That square it off, and people are asking me about the waveforms and compression, that is the mic crapping out. It basically is just pointed on the ground in front of the drum kit, crapping out. Let's turn the EQ off. Marvelous. Thank you for asking me about the Tambourine. So the Tambourine has a head on it. And this is the thing that I actually find is a lot of people don't understand. And it's okay. Hedgeberg Audio and Tom both would like coffee. I do drink coffee, but I also drink a lot of tea, a lot of PG Tips. I'll usually have 2 to 3 cups, at least 2 cups of PG Tips before I have a coffee. It does sound better with the EQ on if it was on its own. We're going to get into the EQ and stuff on the drums soon. We're going to make this a series of videos every week where we're going to mix from scratch. So yeah, the mic is crapping out. It's just, that's part of the sound of that mic. Is it just kind of like those square waves that you're seeing on that mic? This is the mic itself. Zoom right in. All of that characteristic. Where did it go? That's really funny. I asked it to go to fit the window. Extreme. There you go. All of this, that is the mic. See this? These horrible, like, looking. I don't think they're horrible. I think they're really, really tasty. But all of that is the microphone. See? It's not clipping. It's actually quieter than anywhere here to clip. It's the microphone clipping itself. And that's part of why I like that microphone. It's the sound I love. You know, all of this is naturally gear doing what it does. And this is where one of the biggest problems lies with people that haven't recorded organically, is that they look at wave files and say, oh my God, it's clipping. It's like, yeah, but listen to it. As Tom C says, it's a funky waveform. Anyway, so moving back to this. Yes, this has a head on it. Exactly, Hedgebird said. It's totally ugly. And if you gave somebody that file and they looked at it, there would be a guy who was making a video going, yeah, you know, you can see that it's clipping. And you know what? I'll always respond, but what does it sound like? This is what's important. If you want to always be looking at your wave files, that's what's going to happen. You see the head? You hear the head? Do you hear it? Put it in with the drums. I mean, listen to that. Listen to that groove. That's Victor Indrizzo playing the tambourine against himself. Michael says it. That microphone has a built-in decapitator. Yeah, you're right. Exactly, Fabricio. Doesn't that feel fantastic? That's not gridded. That's not played to a click. That is a guy performing. That's a real drummer. He was shaking it. He was shaking it. Now he does though. That's a great observation, David. Now that's another thing. Sometimes drummers will hit it with a stick. You can definitely hear that he's playing it with the side of his hand. Okay, so would somebody, hey, Andrew, can you hear me? Can you grab one of my tambourines with the head on it, please? Like the one that's in the case or whatever. His timing is impeccable because he's playing to himself. Yeah, exactly. Greg is saying, I've seen a lot of overcompressed clipping well used as an effect or achieve a severely crunched or overdriven sound. No rules, just guidelines. Exactly. Okay, so here you go. Here's the tambourine with the head. So this one is kind of beaten up. I think it's kind of nameless. Look, it's dented. It's a tambourine. You see what you got? I know we're going through this thing here. Here's another one. Oh, this is beautiful. This is a Ludwig. These are one of my favorite tambourines. This is small. This is the one he would have been using. Well, one of the ones. Let me go to the big picture for a second because I think this is important. Hold on a second. Webcam only. Okay. See that? I don't get a piece of Ludwig. I wish I did. So it's pretty small. That's like it's only like a hand span. So it's quite tiny. And this is what we would have been using. Yeah, so the head on its own, I've worked with so many people that don't get this, so it's just really important. The headed tambourine, Victor Indrizzo. Who else? Ringo. If you listen to the Beatles stuff, this was the size of the tambourine, this was the model, it's the Ludwig. And so I actually have an original one, which Joey Kramer put his hand through. An older one of these built from the early 1900s. But you can buy these brand new. That's what it is. It's a little baby one with the head. Highly recommend. Use that. When you use the plastic ones with no head on it, they're just like, they sound like, they sound thin and weedy and they don't have that. The thing about that low mid, that sound, it gives me more groove and it creates, let's go back to the screen, this groove between the two. Hey Sean, how are you? Nice to see you here. Okay, so yeah, you can hear that groove. So what have we achieved so far? Well, so far we've found out we're just creating a blend of existing things. What are we missing? Well, we're finding out that the drums sound pretty darn good on their own. However, I have done a little bit of preparation because look, volume. I've got my kick up a little bit. I've got my snare pretty hot in the mix. Sorry if you just joined us, but I did add some samples, but they were samples of their own drums, and I've created a blend. So let's just say, wow, I love that drum sound. There's subtle things to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create, we're going to stay on drums for a bit. I'm going to create a stereo blend. All right, before we do this, let's do a giveaway. So we're going to do a year giveaway of a membership to the Academy, where you get tracks like this every single month to mix, and you get mixed critiques, and you get other members of the Academy helping you out. You also get to go into our exclusive Academy Facebook page, which is incredibly vibrant, full of really wonderful people. Half of the people here watching are members. So, what do I want to know? Well, I always want to know a lot about our community here. Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. So, what do I want to know? Well, first of all, I suppose we're talking about live drums at the moment. I think with live drums, I think one of the things that we've discovered in this conversation was like you can get a great drum sound with one mic. Look at this, these 2 1 mics. Here's this one. Or the salt shaker. Ronnie, the membership is only $169 for a year. So you don't have to give me $250. If you want to join, please join. Yeah, but we're listening here. This is no samples. This is the drum sound, no samples. I'm choosing to have a little extra thwack on that snare and a tiny little tick, tick, tick on the kick if I wanted. Colin's saying he used headed tambourine with an SM57. That's a great combination. 57 cannot be underrated. All right, let's talk drums. So obviously we got Victor Indrizzo, world-class drummer, in my old drum room that I knew back to front, being recorded through an inexpensive $1,000 console, a Tax Scorpion. The most expensive mic was one U87, don't remember where it was, but most of the microphones were 57s, and I had a pair of Audix microphones that were the cheaper kind of black, you know, the ones that they're only about $300 or $400 condensers. It was a fairly inexpensive setup, but it was just a really good drummer in a good room, and that was definitely one of the most important things. So my question is about drums. We've talked about like favorite drummers. Here you go. What's your favorite drum sound? What is your favorite drum sound? Give me an album. Give me an album or a song, either, that you love the drum sound of. What is your favorite drum sound? And it could be a death metal album. It could be a country album. It could be anything. Live drums, or things that sound like live drums, even if they're manipulated. What is your favorite drum sound? I'd love to. That will give me an idea of what you're into and what you're interested in. What is your favorite drum sound? Beatles' White Album. That's a great one. White Album again. In Utero. I tracked in that room. When the Levee Breaks, that's a good one. Back in Black. The Meters, Hedgeberg Audio, a person after my own heart. Double Fantasy, another fantastic drum sound. Phil Collins' Toms, Levee Breaks. Steel Panther. Black Album. Yes, Relayer, Led Zeppelin 4. Drum sound, Selling England by the Pound. Nice one. I'm glad we got some prog heads in here. I like all genres of music, as you know. Queen are my favourite band, but obviously my favourite period of Queen is the Night at the Opera, when it was just insanity and prog and crazy. I love all music, don't get me wrong, but I do love insanity. I do love listening to early Yes and definitely early Genesis. And all Genesis. Every Breath You Take by the Police. Oh wow, that was who won. That's a nice reference. That's a very, very tasteful reference. Oh, we have 445 people watching. Would you please like and share? That's so amazing. Thank you ever so much. We've already have our one disliker from the guy who doesn't like us helping people high passing. Thank you. So 438. That's amazing. Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix. Yeah, that's a good sound. That's a good sound. Black Album, Melvins, Bill Bruford, Talk. That's a great one. Pink Floyd The Wall. Yeah, fantastic drum sound. Any Thin Lizzy's great. Highway to Hell is fantastic. I particularly like the AC/DC drum sound because I hear the EQs. I like Van Halen, great drum sounds. Anything Jeff Beck, yeah, that's great. Great. Yes, Roundabout. I like the insanity, but I speak too much sense. Thank you. The High Pass Haters. Birdland, Heavy Weather, Bluegrass, Brian Blade, Steve Miller, The Beatles' Rubber Soul. Great. XTC, oh yeah, of course. Anything Hugh Padgham, fantastic. Love My Car, yeah, that's a great one. So please like and share. If you could hit the like, there's 428 people watching. That's amazing. Thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much. Okay, so fantastic. So what have we learned? We've learned that the drum sound is good once we balance. We volume balanced our drum sound. We haven't got into EQs and stuff yet. So with that in mind, I'm going to do some quick, simple, dumb things. I'm going to create a stereo bus. Here you go, 3 and 4. I'm now going to create 2 DOS. You know what? I'll do one at a time. 1 stereo bus. So this is going to be 3 and 4. I'm going to call it drum bus. Okay, so now all our drums are sent to a stereo bus. Nice, $1 Billion Babies. I love that. It's a great reference. Great point. Is there anything that isn't fantastic from that period? Yeah. Let's be honest, the sort of mid-70s to mid-80s, unbelievable recordings. So many incredible albums. So, it's pretty phenomenal. So what do we want to do with that? I think we just need to control the dynamics a little bit and not be afraid to scoop out some low mids, because it sounds phenomenal. It sounds phenomenal at the moment, but bear in mind, nothing else is added. Nothing. So I want to do a couple of things. First of all, I like to EQ into compression to exaggerate any kind of snap I might add, especially when boosting. So what I might do is, first of all, go for a cut. Let's go and open up just an REQ, a really simple Renaissance compressor. And let's just go to like some of the low mids. And it already defaults here at 350. All right, so what's that telling me? It's telling me it's sounding better. But the reason why did I do this? Everybody's probably going, why did Warren do all this before applying an EQ? Because I'm trying to prove a point. I've been watching some videos recently that have been trying to fix problems in a mix at the end. What we just proved here, if you can listen to it, have a listen to the EQ on and off. I'm going to put the output off. It's occasionally clipping, but it doesn't matter. We're in the middle of a process. So I'm going to turn the EQ on and off on the drums. Have a listen. What's it doing? This would be like, this is applying EQ on a bus. What's it doing? It's the same thing it's doing if I put it on the mix itself, because we're only listening to this. It's indiscriminately doing low mid cut across everything. This is the number one thing I do not at all subscribe to. I'm not mastering my drums. I watch a lot of badly informed videos where they talk about doing this on the master bus or doing this on groups. This is a last ditch thing. I should not be doing this. So where I took out all the low mids, yeah, I want to take out the low mids, but I shouldn't be doing it indiscriminately across the whole thing. It's taken out things I don't like, but it's also taken out things I do like. I don't want to take that out of my snare. I like that in my snare. Okay, so let's go and find the problem areas. Rather than just doing it across a bus, the whole top-down mixing thing is just not the way I think. I don't think like that. So let's do this in a far more, organized manner. So let's take all of our kick elements and have a listen. So we've got this PR kick, we've got the NS10, which has got a lot of low end, and we've got all of these. So let's listen to all of them. I don't mind the ring on the snare, you're saying the ponging thing, because once things load up, this is the problem with listening in solo sometimes. Once things load up, that ring will disappear really quickly. Yeah, here's a good quote here. URL Tom says, "Don't build the roof of the house first." So, what have we got going on? We've got this beautiful NS10. Which is just like super low end. We've got to kick in. The kick out, one of my favorite mics. Tony, top-down mixing is this idea that you put all of your EQ compression and limiting on your master bus and then sort of mix backwards, which is not what we do. Now, listening to all the elements, that is my favorite, most natural sounding kick drum. To me, that sounds like a kick drum. Now, it's on the outside of the kick, so there's a bit more bleed. You'll notice it's the most bleeding one. Not so worried about the bleed. I really am not. But you notice, listening to everything, the drum sound was pretty darn good. So I, in this instance, want to do less is more. I'm just looking for things to just remove, especially like some of the low mids. I also want to control the low end. I am not afraid to individually do stuff. So with the kick in and the NS10, I get this. I don't gate. I wouldn't gate on this in this situation. I really wouldn't. And also, I do quite a few tricks where you can, where I can take out the snare out of the kick drum, but I'm not worried about it because we listen to all the drums together. It really is a case of just subtle things. We are listening first before making decisions. I'm really taking the time to listen to all these drums, and I know it takes a lot of time. Everybody wants a quick solution, but there is no quick solution. The best solution is to listen to everything and then make choices. I really want to encourage you to do that. So to me, that's a pretty darn good drum sound. That's the kick in and the NS10 on the outside. But also the kick out is a great drum sound. Yeah, Eric says embrace the bleed. That's a great way of looking at it. So I like that. So let's just think about this for a second. We could go, before we do anything, and go along and just take an EQ and go, oh, okay, I like that. Let's go to one of our old favorites. You know what? I'm going to open up the new one. Equal opportunity. I'm going to open up one of our SSL, style the Brainworks compressor. Going to about 60 hertz, and I'm going to boost. That already sounds like a really good drum, kick drum to me. I'm going to take a little bit of compression. I haven't cut anything yet. I've just boosted 60. So already really, really good. Let's go in. Let's take out some like 350. Let's have a look. Pretty remarkable what it's doing there. Okay, now let's boost. I don't know. Let's look around. I don't want to go to super metal. Oh, if I was, I'd go about 7K. So I'm just going to go about 2.5. I usually do about 50, 60 on the kick, especially on a song like this, which isn't metal. And I'm usually going around about 80 is where I'm hearing the bass. But all these things are subject to change, Jerry, depending on the song. So look, simple EQing has already given me something pretty close to the NS10 kick in. I really love the sound of the NS10 to kick in. All I've done was some very, very simple cut, some simple boost, and some high mids at 2.5 and around about 60. And I've got a little bit of compression. We've got 3 to 4 dBs worth of compression. Now we can try bringing in the expander to see if we remove the snare. Not that I think it's necessary, but let's have a listen. What it's doing is it's letting the snare through, but it's shortening the decay of the kick. I might keep that on. Why would I keep that on? Because I have an NS10 that's sustaining for hours. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that schnizzle. So the NS10 is sustaining forever. So why do I need to have competing low end? I don't. Now, I'm also going to say it ain't so. I'm going to high pass. Yes, I'm high passing. Did you hear something there? I know it's subtle. Listen, I am going to see the low end is actually going to sound louder with it high passed. Trust me. Look, watch this. Do you hear that? That's with the high pass at about 20. The kick actually feels louder. I agree, yes, because it's slightly reducing. The expander is slightly reducing. It brings the transient, makes it more evident, but also reduces the sustain of the kick. But did you hear what was going on? About getting the new NS10s, I think that's not a bad idea. They make the replacement speakers. I don't know what used NS10s are going for, home recording place. I think what I would do is I would research what a pair of used ones cost, and if they're cheaper, get those. If the used ones are not cheaper, then buy the brand new ones, because at least they'll have a warranty. I think it just comes down to budget. I personally have not used the new ones, but I hear great things about them. Do you hear what I'm hearing? Do you hear how the low end actually feels louder when you high pass? Because of that energy, that 20 hertz that we do not want or need is killing. It's like a bunch of blah, blah, blah that's going on that doesn't need to be there. So I actually am high passing the kick. So now I have a good natural sounding kick that I really, really like. And that's just off the one mic. So I'm just going to not listen to that now. Now I'm going to listen to the NS10 and the kick in. That's a tough one. I mean, it's like I love that NS. I love it, but it's like it's got to be low. The kick out, you see, is my favorite kick. Throw in the NS10 with it. Put in the PR. See, I only need that for the high end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up and get a Renaissance REQ and do the opposite. I'm doing that. And I know a lot of crap is talked about not doing this, but I'm doing it. So see what I did? I went to 1100. This is something a lot of great mixers have taught me, just to treat everything in individual elements, then blend afterwards. So the only purpose of that PR kick is to give me extra snap. So the question is now, what do I do with this kick in? What I like about that kick in is it's mid-range. It's got a really nice 1K kind of Can you hear that? Per Leak says his cat wants to go out for a walk. Andrew's hovering like he wants to tell me something.
No. Max is on the phone.
Oh, okay. You can sit down. So I'm liking everything that's going on. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is the NS10 having so much lows. So I'm just, as a precaution, and just because I've done this for 100 billion years, I'm going to go and high pass the NS10 about 30. Just control it. Let's add like 350 in. I do usually, that was a D112 inside the kick. Okay, so now all those elements are giving me a nice sounding kick drum. So what am I going to do? I'm now going to take that and I am going to bus that to 1. We're going to bus 7. Mono. So now we're going to create a separate bus. That's coming in on 7. Going to make it solo safe. I'm going to call it kick bus. And I'm going to make that go to, you guessed it, 3 and 4. Now let's have a listen. Now I have shaped those elements into one. I'm going to open another. EQ here. I'm going to use the G. And I'm going to high pass it. The whole thing together. The bleed is not bothering me yet. So I've cut some low mids. I've compressed it. I've done a little bit of high pass, just shaping it. Now I'm going to do a little bit more 2-5. I'm hitting the overload. I don't care. I hit the overload on my SSL all the time, and there's a point where a little red light occasionally sounds good. This is an emulation of an SSL. Now, it's possible, it's quite possible I'm going to boost the high end on the kick a little bit more. I'm leaving that as an option. Not touching the shelving on the high end here. When we come to mix in other elements, like when we add in bass and guitars and stuff, I'm just messing around with G over E. I'm a fan of both, and I have both in my console, so I know the differences. I'm actually never really had a preference for either. E's always been the one that I traditionally thought was the great one, but I like the G's too. So, yeah, I think most people talk about the high and low passes being different between them. Yeah. I think E is, like Tom is saying, that E is supposed to be for the grit. There is something about the E, but I'm using this in a more hi-fi kind of way. We're doing very small moves here. We're doing low mid cut. We're doing high mid boost. And I'm not touching the high shelf, but I guarantee I'll probably end up, yeah, Joe's saying the G's cleaner. I'll probably end up boosting some highs on the kick eventually once we come along and add other instruments. Okay, so let's do another giveaway for a year membership to the Academy. It's always a good question. Oh, by the way, thank you. There's 400 plus people watching, 305 likes. Please like and share. That would be absolutely stupendous. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, so what can we do as another question? I want to know more about you. You're a phenomenal community. You all help each other. We go through all this stuff. We talk about everything all the time. How can we help each other some more? We've learned about what your favorite drum sound is. We've got an idea of who here is. We've got a lot of people who love that mid-70s to mid-80s sound, which I know is still considered by a lot of engineers and producers to be the kind of golden era. Oh, you saw Vinny with Jeff Beck last night? Oh, I love Vinny. I've recorded him a bunch of times. He's phenomenal. And Jeff is, of course, arguably the greatest guitar player in the world. Anyway, where did you see him play? All right. Who's your favorite drummer? I know we did it before. We did it a few weeks ago, but we're doing drums. Who's your favorite drummer? Session player, band drummer? Who is it? Who is your favorite drummer? You made me do it. You mentioned Vinny Carluta. Who is your favorite drummer? Who is your favorite drummer? Okay. All right. While we're doing that, I'm going to move on to the snare. So we're moving on to the snare. Here is just the snare top and snare bottom. Wow, great ones. Mike Portnoy, Bonham, Vinny, Ringo, Eric Carr, Ringo, Questlove, Andy Summers, as a guitar player, but I think I know what you meant. Matt, don't pick Andy Summers. He's not a drummer. Lars Ulrich, Kenny Aronoff, phenomenal drummer. Buddy Rich, John Bonham, Ringo, Neil Peart, Vinnie Colaiuta, Dave Grohl, Steve Gadd, Simon Phillips, phenomenal. Phil Collins, Dave Lombardo, Neil Peart, Mark Portnoy, Simon Phillips, Roger Taylor. Great choice. You know me, I'm a Queen fan. Jeff Porcaro, Bernard Purdy, Bill Ward. Bill Ward's a really good choice. Definitely one of the most influential drummers, whether we know it or not. Jeff Porcaro, Travis Barker, Vinnie Paul, Gene Krupa, great choice. Abe Laboriel, great choice. Junior, Dave Grohl, Steve Gadd, Phil Collins, Bonham, Stuart Copeland. I think that's what you meant rather than Andy Summers. Yes. Bill Bruford, great choice. Ian Pace, love that. Alan White, Dave Grohl, Matt Cameron, Tony Williams, John Bonham, Gene Krupa. Great choices here. Rage Against the Machine's drummer. Yeah, he came here and we tracked him here. Brad Wilk is his name. Brad came here and tracked. He signed some drumsticks and gave it to us and signed some other stuff for my son. Simon Phillips, Stephen Adler. Charlie Watts, Keith Moon, big fan of Deep Purple, yeah, Buddy Rich, Simon Phillips, Mike Mangini, Steve Jordan, Kenny Aronoff, Meg White, Dave Lombardo, Michael Shreve, Don Henley, that's a really good choice, song drummer. All right, Matt, you're going to choose somebody? Ginger Baker, I see a good reference there. Thanks everybody for watching and being such an amazing help to us. There we go. What did you choose? Larnell Lewis. Oh, look at that. There's some left-of-center choice that we wouldn't have come up with. That's fantastic. Thanks, everybody, for watching and being so supportive. There's so many of you watching, and the fact that you're liking and sharing this is phenomenal. Okay, we're moving into snare drum. Now, you know that the snare drum is turned off here. Have a listen. To be honest, that's a really good snare drum sound. It's just lacking a little bit of body and it's lacking a little bit of snap. And if you were watching from the beginning, you know that we added some of that. That's a good answer. Every King Crimson drummer is a very good answer. Okay, so let's do this. Let's create another bus. So let's go to a random number, bus 15. Okay. So it only needs to be mono. Here's Eric Von Derrickson about to knock over the light, really not paying any attention. And so, hey! Okay, snare sub. We're still live, Eric.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone, says Eric. Yeah. Exactly, Mikhail. It does sound snappy, but what we did is we created, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but go back to the beginning of, Nick Mason. What a great answer. I don't think, Ian Pace is underrated, but he should definitely be mentioned, I agree. Every Spinal Tap drummer, nice answer. Bizarre gardening accident, spontaneously combust. But good answer with the Nick Mason. So yes, what we did, if you want to go back to the beginning of the video after we've done, go back and you'll hear that what we did is we created samples of the own drummer. Because I did this before I owned a Transient Designer and I was only doing this on a TAC Scorpion console and didn't have expensive equipment, but I had a really good drummer, I created these thwack samples. I'll play them to you quickly. Here. And then I also have a solid, compressed, nice snare. And I have one sample from my sample library. If you haven't already signed up for the email list, you'll get the sample library, which is actually detuned. I actually got that from, that's a Dave Jordan one. Okay. So now they're bussed together. So there's a couple of things happening. There is an amazing little groove going on, isn't there? So what do we want to do? It's a real tough one. I think the drums all together. Here's all the drums all together. We're in a really, really good position because we have these two mono mics here. And this one. So those two heavily compressed mono mics bring up a lot of that. So in this instance, I am listening. I am not... Just go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list and you'll get the drum samples. I'm sure Matt can put up the link there. So what you'll see is happening is with the drums, the snare, I could parallel compress the snare to bring up that, but it's already in other mics. The drummer is Victor Indrizzo. So the point is like, I don't need to. So it's always about like, there's no one size fits all. This is why we've been doing this very slowly and talking about listening to all of the drum elements and making decisions based on listening to everything, as opposed to like just going, I always boost this, I always cut that. When you do that and you just watch a YouTube video and it shows you how to mix a kick drum, the problem is it's like how to mix a kick drum, what? For what genre? For what song? For what performance? For what drum kit? For what drummer? For what room? We need to just learn how to listen. So what am I hearing on that? I'm hearing a pretty darn good snare drum sound. I maybe want a little bit more brightness and I want a little bit more lows. So I'm actually bust these two together. I'm going to leave it like that. The snare bottom is slightly quieter. Now as a generic thing, I'm just going to open up an SSL channel here. We'll go back to the E. And let's go down to about 100 and boost something there. Now what's interesting about that is I'm bringing out a lot of kick. So if I bring in some high pass, say it ain't so. Yes, he said it was so. So I'm boosting quite a lot of 100 there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute that for a second and listen to the snare top. Now I'm listening to snare bottom. It seems like to me that the snare top has more defined kick in it. Listen to the snare bottom. So despite the fact that it's a weird one. Let's go back to the snare top again, have another listen. Now, I'm going to take the snare top only, and I'm going to EQ it separately. Oh my God, no! He's EQing it separately? Won't that make the phase look wrong? Won't it make it look wrong? Yeah, I know. You see where I'm going. So this is what real mixers do. We come in and we're going to boost some 110 here. Love that body it's adding. Okay, so now let's go and high pass quite steeply around about here. So what I've done really quickly and easily is boost some low end at 110 and high pass at 72. On an SSL, you might... I am mixing on headphones. Yep. I'm mixing on headphones and I'm using an ID14, which is this big. An Audient ID14, and I'm mixing entirely in the box. Why don't I name my buses? Because I have 15 different ways of working. I don't have a standard way. So that's a little too, like, it's not the way my brain works. I don't go, I have templates that create when I mix an album. I'll mix an album and we'll mix a song and then we'll apply that to every song. But every song we start with, we create something unique. So I'm already liking that. I like that. I'm not applying any compression. The guy's pretty darn even. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out this REQ for an REQ4. Why? So I can add a little high end. And I'm just going to go and do a nice gentle up around about here. I like that. It's like 7 or 8K, nice wide. Well, we were talking about that earlier. Good question, Christian. Very, very good. Yes, the MV2 would do that. However, we have these room mics. I'm glad that this is really good. I'm reading your comments and getting into this. But remember, we have these. So I've got those mics that are giving me so much of that I decided I wasn't going to parallel compress. Now, if I didn't have those, hi Alan, if I didn't have those, I probably would be expecting it to happen from the snare itself. And I would have parallel compressed the snare, squashed the schnizzle out of it and got the... But I already have it in a different mic. That's why we spent so long listening to everything and making these choices. So now I already like my snare. I've barely done anything. I've just done 2 minor things. Let's go back. Let's just them bust together through the SSL. Now I immediately don't need so much low-end boost. I'm keeping my high pass on. So about 75. I'm going to use a little 7K here. Let's put all the elements together. Okay, so this is all gentle stuff. This is the thing here. See, the Delta Vista Studio. Great question. This is where there's so much crap talked. How much is this individual EQ in changing the phase in reference to the drum bus? That's where a lot of people are trying to get you and confuse you on YouTube. They're trying to confuse you and look at waveforms, and they're not listening. Yes, phase shifts, console, all this kind of stuff. And you got to listen. Is it improving it? Don't look at the waveforms, because the guys, and it's all guys, unfortunately. I think some of the girls that do this are a little smarter sometimes. I feel like they're showing you what the waveform's listening to, but then you listen to the mixes and they're really bad. Bye, Anne. So you see, I added some compression and I turned the release down super quick. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Now that I've done all of that, I am going to add, I don't need the room version of but I'm now going to add these samples in there as well that are sampled from the same drum kit. These are not generic samples. These are, well, one of them kind of is. Here's the D28 for the body, which is really quiet. Yep, tons of toms. We'll get to the toms in a minute. So there you go. Didn't do a huge amount of stuff. Did a lot more listening. Hopefully that's coming across. A lot more listening and a lot less EQing and compressing. Just a lot more listening. Right, I'm going to listen to my overheads for a second. So what I'll do on my overheads, and this is pretty typical for me, is I will literally just open it up and I listen to some of the lows. Pull out some low mid. And then I am going to pull out some of the super lows and the low mids. Because what we were talking about is when we listened to the drum mix, we felt like there was a little bit too much low build-up. But when we did a generic low-mid cut on the drum bus, it was indiscriminately ruining drum sounds. I mix without EQ all the time. We could mix this track without EQ. And the amount of EQ we're applying, as you can tell, is pretty slight. So I'm going to do a similar thing on the hi-hat here. Just take out some of those lows because we're getting a low build-up. We don't need a wong, wong, wong going on. We don't need that. So I usually find in hi-hat I like a little 400. It's a little ugly, but I don't mind a little bit of that. Okay, let's go to the room mics. You can hear it with the rest of the mix in a little bit. I'm just sort of like, we're doing things in a little roundabout kind of way because we're over examining everything so we can really get this idea down about listening to things. Okay, so let's do some low mid cuts. And I'm going to bring in two things. So on my cymbal mic here, I don't need that kick drum double low end. So I'm actually pulling out. You see, I'm high passing at 92. So a little low mid cut, a little low end high pass, high pass, high pass, high pass. Gently done. It was really cool. Now let's listen to this other room mic here. That's just such a good sounding mic. I'm actually copying the setting. That's cut out some of that low mid too. Now these are the close room mics. Absolutely, Delta Vista, but I did. I listened to everything, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I know what to do, and I'm showing you what to do to come back. Be patient, please. So basically, we listened to the drum bus, and we decided there was too much low-mid build-up, but we also decided that you needed to go in and listen to everything. Sorry, maybe you missed that, but go back in and find where some of that low-mid build-up was happening. I'm not even sure if I'm going to put a reverb on this yet. I'm going to make that decision a little later on the snare. I'm getting a really natural drum sound here. So again, I've got a little bit too much low mid build up. So you see what I did there? I came up a little bit higher on the high pass at 104, high pass, and 350 cut. Now on the far rooms. The far rooms for me are more about the ambience. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put an EQ on it to do the same thing. But believe it or not, I'm going to put a reverb plugin on the far rooms. This might be all I need. So if I just go to something like an R-verb here. See what I did is I actually high-passed the reverb to take out that low-end build-up. All right, let's see what we got. So see, there we did. So, like I was saying, and I was trying to explain to Delta Vista there, we listened to the drum bass and we decided that once we balanced the drum mics, that there was this low-mid build-up. So then we went back to pull out those low mids, find out where it was, rather than indiscriminately doing it on the drum bus. So that was the purpose of going in there and listening to those elements. Now we've combined it back together, and I don't hear a low-mid build-up anymore. I don't need to have this EQ on my drum bus. So there's no need for that backward mixing. As somebody else was pointing out, we're not building the roof first and then trying to do it. I'm listening to all of the drums combined and deciding how to EQ. See, now I've got snappy drums, I've got low mids where I want them, I've got low end where I want it, I've got boosted on the kick, but I took it out of a room mic so there's no splurging, they're not in the overheads, I'm high passing, I'm pulling out low mids in different areas, and I've got good, fat, snappy sounding drums. I know I did, Delta, you could hang out and I'll always make the point. It was the point that I was making the whole time. You probably tuned in late and didn't understand. That's quite all right. Okay, so let's have a listen to the bass. Cool. All right, I think we have artists arriving. Woohoo! So we're going to tune out. Oh, it's Lauren. It's Lauren. Hey, Lauren. We're still live, but come and sit down.
Still live.
Still live, yeah. All right, fantastic, everybody. We're going to do one more giveaway. We're going to do one more giveaway. So... Yes, thank you, Tom C, for reminding me about the toms. See how I did that? See how I just kind of just moved on past the toms without anybody noticing? Actually, it was a total mistake. If I felt like the cymbals were loud, first of all, I would take them down, but I'm not afraid to use some, a little bit of distortion on them just to tame it. But my favorite thing on overheads that are really, really, yes, we're still live, Wyatt. But my favorite thing that we do is to add a de-esser on it. So it's pretty darn good. What's the only problem I'm hearing? I'm not going to bust these just yet because I don't know if I need to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an R bass and an EQ. So I'm going to EQ just the rack tom on its own, and I'm going to high pass it, and I'm going to pull out some low mids, even though it needs more low end. Why am I doing that? Because I want to control going into my R bass. It's pretty yucky, isn't it? But I pulled out the low mids that I don't want. Now I'm controlling going into it. Here is an R bass. which is another one of my favorite plugins. If I can find it, here it is. Cool. So you see what it's doing there? It's just, I'm controlling it going in. Now let's listen to all the drums together. Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, it is really works really, really well. Yeah, Dante, we were talking about it at the beginning. First of all, I don't think we need a transient designer on that, but we definitely could use one. But when I did this drum recording on Attack Scorpion, I didn't have a transient designer, so I did all these little tricks. Go back to the beginning of the video, and you'll see some of the tricks I did. I think I might want a little bit more sustain on that tom. I'm not sure yet, and maybe that's where we could put a transient designer, but I'm not going to make that decision just yet. And we're going to go on our next live stream, we're going to do the bass. We're going to do the bass. So for our last giveaway, for a 1-year Academy membership, I want to know, what do I want to know? We've done favourite drummer, we've done favourite drum sound on an album, and we've all talked about that and found out what it is. But the question is like, I'm trying to think of something that would really, really help us in this. All right, what's your favourite drum plugin? Simple as that. What is your favourite go-to plugin you always use on drums? And if it's like, oh yeah, nothing beats a great drummer, but if it happens to be a bass one, listen to the sustain. What is your favourite drum plugin? I have to use the bathroom like a vengeance. You want to meet Eric? Eric, come here. Look, this is Eric. Ask Eric questions.
Throwing me under the bus like that.
Throwing you under the bus. Everybody, here's Eric.
Hello, everyone. I am Eric. For those of you guys that don't know, I am Warren's engineer. I am also one of the videographers and editors for Produce Like a Pro. And I've been with Warren for almost 4 years. Next month will be 4 years. And yeah. Let's see. Addictive drums. Yes, we're using now pretty much everything for our samples. Superior drummer. I haven't tried any of these other drum plugins. Hey, hey. God, I don't know how Warren keeps up with this. So many comments. I really wish I had something to go off on with this. I'm not Warren. I'm learning. I'm still learning all of this and all the plugins and the way he works. Yes, I do get paid. I am not the intern anymore. I've worked my way up. I've put in my time. Blink if you are in danger. The bathroom does great reverb. Yeah, I have not. I know, huh? Not this one. Our bathroom here is actually our machine room, but I've not actually experienced miking up any bathroom yet myself. But I always hear those mics and they sound friggin' awesome. How would I mix a kick? The way Warren does. Congrats, Vlad. Harrison XT, drum character. I am 24. So I started with Warren when I just turned 20. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing when I started. I was barely figuring out how to use a MacBook. And I mean, I got into it. I learned right on the spot. I actually went to two separate schools for recording, and nothing taught me as much as I did, like as much as I learned when I was in the moment here.
They're liking him.
I don't know how you keep up with all the comments. There's so many.
I know, I tried to.
They just keep going.
Andrew Perez says, nice hair. From the other room. So, why does Pro Tools crash so much? It doesn't for us. Maybe once every few days, I don't know. It doesn't really crash so much. We have it running for like 15 hours a day, and yeah, you get the occasional crash, but it's usually because of my computer, because we have so much stuff going on. It's got nothing to do with Pro Tools in particular. Okay, everybody. Yeah, Ronnie says, do you really like Warren? He's like, So, did we get the question? What was everybody's favorite drum plugin? And Owen wants to know, what's the most important thing you've learned from me? He's really worried about this answer.
Work ethic?
Say again?
Work ethic?
Work ethic. There you go. Eric he's close to matching my hours. Not quite. That's pretty difficult, but it's pretty close. Klanghelm. Okay, we're doing put a de-esser on the Pro Tools crash. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it. Vladimir 1. Harrison XT drum character. I've not used that. Great. Eddie Kramer. Oh, they want to hear you say marvelous, Eric.
Oh man, marvelous.
Did you hear that?
It just gets rid of all the British accent completely, huh?
He said marvelous. Stay humble. Yes, definitely. Always stay humble. You know, you got to be careful. It's like it's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. It's like I'm trying to help people. Is like, you know, we shouldn't be inserting ourselves and our own agenda in there to be superior. This is something that I probably come down on more heavily than anything else. It's like enjoy the journey, go along with the process, try and bring out the best from your artists, leave your ego at the door. You know, that's what we got to do. It's not about like, look at me, I noticed something, I want to point it all out. When you're working on an album, when you're working with artists, yes, you need the work ethic, but you need to understand how to let things happen. Because usually, if you just hold back and not say something, it will happen the way it's supposed to happen. And artists will appreciate that from you. And that's the atmosphere that you need to do. And Clay says your haircut looks marvelous. So sometimes, you know, you have to swallow your pride and swallow your ego and just let the process happen. And that sometimes is really, really good production. It's a really good production job, but it's also a good metaphor in life. It's like it's not always about us. When we're working with artists, when we're teaching and sharing knowledge and helping stuff, it's not always about our individual ego and needing to be heard. It's about like, how do we swap that kind of stuff? So Eric's really good at that. He really gets it. I do tell him off from time to time, but he gets better and better. And we always speak very highly of him. And he takes it. He takes the criticism and learns from it. Sometimes he makes the same mistake a few times over. Like putting up videos in mono.
Oh, no.
But you know what? We're all doing really good stuff. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We'll get into bass and guitars on the next one. You learned that from a band named Queen. Yes, we're all huge Queen fans there. Thanks ever so much, everybody. It's been really wonderful. Thank you all for helping out and listening down and enjoying the process. You all rock. 396 likes. Thank you, the home recording place. I really appreciate it. Could you try and take us over 400 likes? That would be amazing. Can Eric make a good cup of tea? Actually, we don't make tea in the studio. I make it in my house. Here it's just coffee. We don't have any Herman Miller Aero chairs. We need to, but they're so expensive. They're very expensive. All right, gonna move on. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Thank you ever so much. Please like and share. I really appreciate it. Thanks ever so much for all of the amazing comments. It's really wonderful. Did we get over the 400? Did we get over 400? We got 399. Take it over. 400. Yay! Thank you ever so much. You all rock. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. I really appreciate it. Please share, like, tell your friends. It's really wonderful to have this incredible community that helps each other. And thanks for all of your patience and listening down to the process and adding good comments and really being part of a great bunch of guys and girls. Have a marvelous time recording. We'll see you again very soon for another live stream. And you were 400. Thank you, Uncle Monkey. And we'll add basses and guitars and all kinds of other wonderful things. Thanks a lot. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Okay, bye.